Okay, it is recording. I'm going back to a case of distrust. I found out what I missed by watching a streamer that was one of the raid 2s that Crimson Tuesday went to. Found the item I was missing. So we're gonna play that. Also, apologize. I'm eating a granola bar. President's Choice has them. Well, Loblaws in general have them. Quaker one's on for $1.77 a box. So I got a couple flavors to try. Because I accepted a 10-day contract to work the municipal election. So I'm trying some to see if there's any I'd actually like to take in my lunch, because my problem right now, like with my stomach issues, I have to eat like little tiny meals throughout the day. I just like wait till lunch, so I'm gonna have to like have some snacks on my breaks. So like granola bars are easy, they're not messy. Yeah, I got some caramel and chocolate and a strawberry. I used to get the banana split style that they used to sell, but they haven't had that for a long time. It wasn't Quaker, it was something else. Sam Shipman had told me Green's letter was a fake. He said he had a phone at the Southern Coffee. He'd phoned at Southern Coffee when he got a chance to look into Green's past. I still had to chase up Green's bootlegging. Knocked on the front door. Didn't get a response. The latch was undone, so I pushed it open and stepped into the room. Yeah. Mrs. Green slumped in the chair, eyes closed, head rocking slowly. Shook her lightly, and she moaned again, but said nothing more. Well, at least we checked on her. But yeah, I found out where I have to go. Frame just warped enough to prevent the front door from completely closing. Tiny Paul is probably still shooting pool upstairs. I could talk to him or search the place if I felt it would lead anywhere. Yeah, the streamer I watched, I can't remember her name, had shitty luck with taxis. Got the misogynist one and different ones. Glanced towards the driver and noticed the right side of his face was covered by a tin plate, paint to match his light skin tone. The plate was a glass eye. Yeah, we're not doing that. I didn't want to bring up the disfigurement. We exchanged a few pleasantries, and I was silent in the back seat until we reached our destination. Yeah, don't be rude, Malone. Yeah, probably war injury. Opened the cab door in front of a North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of the English, but a small gray spoon was still visible below the letters. I wrapped my knuckles across the door, and the familiar pair of eyes leered down at me. Bar's still closed, but you can go up. Again, the door cracked open and revealed the stairs. Walked the stairs and opened the thin wooden door to the billiards room. It was much smaller than I expected for a gangster's paradise. The only light came from the hanging lamps of the billiards tables. The haze of cigarette smoke darkened the room. Yeah, that's what I forgot. A bottle of unlabeled wine sat on the table. When I sniffed, it smelled of strong spice. Hey, Tawny Paul. Tell me about the fucking spiced wine. Wine bottle. Bottle unlabeled wine sat on the table. When I sniffed, it smelled of strong spice. That's time ball. Ball on table, I asked. He said, that's the stuff. Sample from Green Source. I know some Napa wine that smells exactly like it, I said to him. That's so he smelled? Well, that one's from Vancouver. I had to work on my muscle on my face to stop my jaw from hitting the floor. Where's the wine from, Paul? I asked him again. It's from Vancouver, he repeated. Frankie had told me that only Napa grapes had this type of spice. If Paul didn't know this bottle was local, I wasn't going to tell him. It told me something very important. I had to confirm with Frankie. But if I had my hunch was on the money, then Connor Green was not getting his wine from Canada. And he wasn't playing square with Tiny Paul. Anything else, Paul asked me. I snapped back into the moment and considered if I needed to tell him anything else. Though I just snagged quite the lid. Tell him about the wine bottle there. I didn't have anything else to say to him, so he cracked his knuckles after the table, and they resumed lining up shots. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Thought we're heading back down the back stairs to the street. Thought this was the same one that Frankie had that was like church wine. Shipment said he'd call Southern Copy if he found any dirt on Green. I'd go see if I had any messages. Of course, if I was stuck on a case. Stiff drink with Frankie could help me get a hint as well. I'm gonna get another drink too. I drank 2 out of 3. Waved down a taxi cab on the way. I thought I might talk to the driver to pass the time. Driver began talking baseball. You know, he started. My bet is that the Seals could play in the majors. His voice had a high pitch and was just nasally enough to be irritating. Between Shea, Geary, and McWeeny, we've got enough guys who know how to hurl the ball, and our middle order of Wayner, Walsh, and Montague is unstoppable. Sure, be better fielding, but there's no reason we can't snag a glove from out east. Hell, we can get better pay than half those teams anyhow. Of course, those owners say that their teams would mop the floor with us, but they're just scared at a competitive cost. All they want the profits to stay with their own cronies. But imagine their faces when we beat them in their own parks. What I give to see something like that. Man, this is going on. And you know, Art Griggs is rumored to be coming from the Angels. I just think that's unfair that we do this to the league. Let him play with the big boys, I say. Between Shea, Geary, and McWeeny, we've got enough guys to know how to hurl the ball. And our... Okay, you're just gonna loop. Kept talking in circles about the Seals, but I listened politely. My eyes were glazed over when he finally announced we're here. When I went to exit the Casa Cab, I turned and said, "Hey, thanks for listening. You're all right." I nodded and stepped out. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, the lone waitress, was friendly to help with any inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet where Frankie played bathroom attendant. Southern Coffee had the distinct feeling of home. A familiar smell of mold in that old basement was enough to put a grin on my face. Frankie was still behind the bar. I wondered if Shipman had left any messages for me. Of course, if I was stuck on the case, a long drink with him might be helpful. I'm gonna get a drink before we do this. Cocktail shaker. Yeah. Hey, Frankie. So says. Asked for a side. Frankie muddled a few mint leaves in the shaker, added gin and syrup, squeezed in a lemon, and gently shook. He then double-strained the mixture and poured it over a large piece of ice. I drank slowly, and we had a long laugh, but I forgot what about. Just finished the drink, Frankie asked if I had anything I wanted to talk to him about. Any messages, Frankie? I asked him. Nothing yet, Miss Chief, Frankie chuckled. Chapman's supposed to call you about Green. What have you got so far? Well, like this, I told it. Remember that wine you offered me? Oh, the Zinfandel you turned up your nose to. Where did that grape come? Where did you say that grape was from? It's from here, California, Napa or Sonoma. You sure? Yes, Malone. That's the only place these grapes grow nowadays. And not Canada, I asked. What are you swinging at, Malone? Tiny Paul had a bottle of wine that tasted the exact same, the identical spice. He said it was from Green's bootlegging source, from Vancouver. Malone, I'm telling you, he said, no wine anywhere else in the world has that spice. It ain't from Vancouver, and Green ain't getting it cheap. I nodded. Well, you just confirmed my hunch. Green's got no source. He must be swindling Tiny Paul and the entire fiery gang. And I bet he'll run away with that money. Frankie let out a long whistle of disbelief. So the phone rang. Frankie picked it up with a hello, right? Then handed me the receiver saying shipment. PC, he said, his excited voice crackling the speaker. Find anything on Green, I asked. Nothing, he said. I was puzzled. Then why'd you call? That's the idea. First, get pinched for a brawl in the ferry building. That was in November 1920. Before that, no Connor Green anywhere around the bay. Strange, he continued. Has trouble staying out of a mess. Mixed up in something nearly every week. So, only appearing a few years ago? That Oakland backstory is Swiss cheese. Okay, Sam Beckett. What are you thinking? Green's got a different past, I asked. Uh-huh, he said. Guess that he just got here in 1920 and never been straight about where he's from. Wait a sec. If Connor Green was a criminal in another town, easily some cop would have recognized the name and sent him back home. SFPD isn't that thick. Right, Shipman agreed. But if it's the same name, could be his real identity disappeared in another town. Thought out loud. So he might have changed lives. Is there any way to confirm that? If Green fled, the local bulls would keep looking for him. But not if they thought he died. Got these cases sometimes where mobsters fake a death to escape a burg. Use a mangled stiff to do it, someone unrecognizable. That way they get out of town without a chase. Got any mobster deaths in 1920, I asked? A ton. Too many to look into. But narrow the search for me. A town he might be from. I could check a specific city's archive. Anything in notes that tells you where he could be from? Yep, sure. I don't know how we're showing him over the phone, but okay. It was the backmost table, and it was 2 train tickets to St. Louis, which seemed to have disturbed Mrs. Green when I mentioned them. I tried to ask her about the tickets again, but she was trapped in her opium days. I found some tickets to St. Louis in Green's apartment, I said. I told him. The missus was ruffled when I picked them up. I stayed on the telephone while Shipman used another line to call his contact at St. Louis Post Dispatch. I was nursing a glass of gin when he got back to me. So we've had some wine, we've had a cocktail, we've had another cocktail, we've had another cocktail, and now we're having gin. Lucky break, PC. Seems there's one that fits the bill. I've read aloud the article from St. Louis Post-Dispatch, dated October 8th, 1920. Gun battle at June's Diner. Gangster dead. Suspected bandit clubhouse scene of another shooting. A heated argument turned deadly Thursday as multiple shots rang inside June's Diner on the 14th Street. Suspected hideout of Egan's Rats. A man was found dead in the scene, unidentified due to the shotgun wounds in his face. Police suspect he is a mobster, Bragg the Jester, who had hired a private eye to investigate threats on his life. Last month, Chief of Police Brandon said that investigating gangsters on gangster deaths was a waste of time, and the discovery of the threats leads many to believe the police won't look further into the case. So, Bucko Green was previously a mobster. He hired a private investigator to look at, if there was a threat on his life, and then faked his death by getting killed. So we got the same thing happening again, only this time, instead of being a mobster, he's just a, goon, pretty much. Hold on, I said. This Bragg character had hired a private detective. Seems the police are quick to forget that case, if they get a reason to think it's just a gangster violence. And that lines up with Green, I said. Guess better Bragg's real name? Connor. I cursed loudly through the telephone. I continued with my theory. And your story says his Bragg was deeply indebted, so maybe Green's just waiting in San Francisco until he's got enough dough to skip town and go home. We have some bootlegging business, Shipman asked. Why would he leave that behind? No, I shook my head. His wine is complete bunk. It's local stuff, not any Canadian route he might be claiming. I didn't know why he'd pull a fast one until now. Yeah, because it's like, why are you paying so much for fucking wine made locally during Prohibition instead of the cheap stuff from Canada, unless you're like not actually trying to bootleg, you're just cover storing it? Turning Bragg to St. Louis would be huge. Swing by the station. We'll iron it all out. I agreed and slammed the receiver on its pegs. Why the fuck are you fucking slamming the receiver, Malone? Like, be nice to Frankie's equipment. It seems I need to make my way back to the station. Frankie keeps the collection of pre-Prohibition bottles shelved behind the counter. Shapes and colors are far more alluring than the opaque jugs of modern swill. His label showed a rearing horse in front of a forest. I had no idea how the horse related to the California's most genuine bourbon whiskey, though I suppose I did stare at the picture long enough to whet my appetite for the bottle's contents. Abel had a poem on it. Bill, fill your cup, full of no distress. For all our greatest thoughts, drinking less, will do a good deed nonetheless. The bottle showed a California bear with the words Bohemian type in block letters underneath. I doubted that bear had ever heard of Bohemia, but he did look carefree. Any more? Yeah, I'm just noticing there's stuff I missed. Take care, Frankie. Hold my calls. Orange stairs led to the outside world. So, what's the news on Green? Frankie asked. I was headed upstairs. Now it seemed like I had all the details. I surmised it for him. So the total wrap. Green isn't really green at all. He's Bragg the Jester, a former member of Egan's Rats from St. Louis. He's Bragg? Frankie was shocked. But he's been here a while, Malone. Sure, I said, but only since 1920. He couldn't pay off his debts in Missouri, so he faked his death and moved to San Francisco. He's been longing to go back, but needs a way to settle his scores before he can show his face again. That where his bootlegging comes in? Frankie asked. Uh-huh. Green set up a sham running scheme. He bought local wine, but claimed to get it from lower prices from Canada. He convinced Tiny Paul to front him a heap of cash for it. Instead, providing the wine, he's planning to skip town with Paul's money, disappearing to St. Louis with enough dough to pay back his debts. Already faked his death once, so he'll do it again. Here? Frankie asked. That's right. His plan is similar to his last one. Hire a detective, claim he's scared for his life, fake his death, then know the police won't bother with underground violence. Frankie looked at me with a blank stare. Seems like all the pieces fit, he said. So he just hired you as cover. I sighed. Seems like it. Don't worry about the Frank, he starts saying, but I cut him off. I'm going to see Shipman now. I'll sweep away this mess, then come back and see you. Have a stiff drink ready, I instructed. Just be careful, Malone. Egan's rats have a reputation. They can be ruthless. I turned and walked up the stairs. There's only one place to go. Green had hired me for cover so that he could blow town. Shipman held the final evidence to sink that plan. I needed to get to the station. I'm going to bet he gets offed anyway. Green. I stepped in the taxi cab and was consumed with my own thoughts about the case. Finally caught my break, but it was a dud. I hadn't realized it, but I've been reveling in real detective work. Once I learned it was all bunk, my mind reverted to its incessant nagging. Like a wonder with. If I was just a puppet and some two-bit mobster, I was hardly bringing much justice to anybody, which would make me unsure of exactly what it was that I was doing. I suppose I was wasting my time. It all came back to the same basic premiere. You're failing. My inner voice said. I began to feel nauseous in the car. My mind repeated the last thought. You are falling. I should have picked I know. I just thought, you know, I thought this seemed the more optimistic choice option. And then everything turned to black. As if someone had shut all the lights. My naked arms faded into view. They emitted a soft white light. I rubbed my eyes, willing them to focus, but without success. Between my fingers it appeared in the distance. I could hardly see, but its object billowed. A clarity came to me, then I understood what it was. Lewis's gray coat. I floated towards it. Having like a fucking psychological break in the backseat of this taxi cab. I reached to grab the coat, which was when I saw the needles. No, not needles, glass. Shards falling all around me. Unpleased wedged itself deep in my right elbow. I grimaced, but was able to make any noise or movements. And then suddenly, the rain had started. It stopped. Looked upwards with caution where the rains returned, but above me, I saw the great coat. It was no longer billowing, it was rigid, a shield against the terrible rain. It started falling slowly at first, but then quickly it gained speed. It came upon me and enveloped me completely. It was suffocating. So, either we're having like a weird, fucked up, like, disassociation, or we've been fucking knocked out, drugged, and now we're being dumped. And it's the gray coat that Mrs. Green had in her house. It was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I let out a gasp. And then the light. It pierced my eye sockets, hissing the back of my skull like a hammer on an anvil. I directed all my energy into my lungs and forced out a yell. And it helped. Everything became quiet. I could breathe deeply. Noticed someone beside me. He gradually came into focus. Shipman showed his teeth in a big smile. Vision. Had a strange dream. Okay, it was a dream. I just figured we're just fucking, you know, we got too into what was going on and were whacked. Shipman showed his teeth in a big smile. I looked up at him from lying position on the Murphy bed, swung his leg over the chair, and sat beside me. Thought you'd never come around, he said. What happened? I thought you'd never come around. I tried to ask him anything, but another bolt of pain raced up my elbow. All I managed was a groan. Relax, PC. Just a few scratches. Quite the auto crash. Flew straight through the front window. It took out a large piece of glass from her right arm. I remembered none of that. I mumbled the words auto crashed to myself. I wondered how bad the accident had been. Chip removed a flask from his pockets, unscrewed the top, handed to me. Not the best hooch, but might get rid of that banging in your head. Yeah, we need a drink. the swig, closed my eyes and sighed a deep breath as its warmth burned down my throat. I knew modern medicine doubts it, but that gulp of moonshine helped. I went to give the flask back to Shipman, but he put his hand out to stop me. Hold on to it. Might need another swig after what I'm about to tell you. So, the driver's probably dead. If we were in the back seat and got whipped through the front windshield. Green's probably dead. I propped myself up on my left shoulder to listen. About Green's case, the two of us figured he was going to fake his own death. Shipman clicked his tongue to his teeth and looked towards the floor. That ain't happening. Last night, Connor Green was shot through the heart twice. What? I showed it? The exclamation was impulsive. I swung my legs quickly around and sat on the edge of the bed. My headache had suddenly vanished. Whoa there, Shipman said. Look, been here with you all night, he added quickly. In that chair beside the bed. Just telephone the station to check in, and that's the rap they gave me. Told them what I'd known from you, and they said they'd chase it up. Shipman's a good guy. Malone's lucky that she has Shipman and Malone and Frankie, because she's just not in a good place. How do you know it was him? Another voluntary question. I was running on instinct. PC, faking your death involves a mangled body. Shot through the chest, his face is still intact. Whatever Green was planning on doing, he didn't get that far. Yeah, he got whacked. Probably found out about shoddy fucking lagging. Or planned to skip town. I looked it up. He doesn't have a twin. That would be too easy, Shipman grinned. Green hired you for this case, he continued. Gives you every right to follow up on it if you want. That said, he was likely taking you for a ride. Wouldn't blame you if you want to drop it. But I'd like your help, PC. You know the case. Could use your head. Ava's been a little bumped. Once you're feeling better, I'll be at the station. Come find me there. Shipman stood up and cracked his back. Maybe I'll catch some shut-eye on top of my desk, too. Sure beats that chair you got. He turned and walked out. Good guy, Shipman. Stood up from the creaking bed and surveyed the cluttered apartment. The cat's still here. Cat slept at the foot of the bed. I scratched behind his ear, and he seemed to like that. The apartment was already cramped when the Murphy bed was up. With it down, I could barely squeeze through the living room. Newspapers flopped on the floor. Its headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace, sweeping Russia, seemed the Bolsheviks had lost their head. My old notebook now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, and the mirrored details everything could be useful. Yeah, I don't get why she has the phone, like, unless it's disconnected. But you think that would be like the plot point, you know? Story, I have been able to pay, well, not lucky bill, but you know, phone bill. Like, instead of having that plot point. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow with age, half blocked the kitchen doorway. My income really made much to stock it, and right now it was empty. I had taken copies of the old murder cases from the SAP records when I left. I loved reading through them, even though my own contributions were minimal. At the time, I longed for those types of jobs. The truth was, my work was hard to find. Any work was hard to find for a female detective. That lamp had belonged to my Uncle Lewis. He'd been an SFPD officer who had argued policewomen could be good detectives, even while the others jeered at me. I knew he'd been right, but my current workload didn't help that claim. Package of cigarettes that were latest trim, but I still preferred to roll my own. The ashtray with evidence that it was a practice skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. Kept a small statue underneath the side table. It had been police evidence in a crime, as owner had wanted it back. I took the shine to it, but I snagged it for myself on the way out of the department. Now, I guess it's time to leave. But we're going to pat the cat again. scratch behind his ear, and he seemed to like that. He stared at the doorway and took a deep breath. I suppose I owed Shipman enough to help solve the case, even if Green had given me the roundabout. After all, what time a detective would leave a case half solved. There's only one place to go. Police station. Although Green had just been using me, his life had apparently been in danger all along. I resolved to find his killer. I headed to the North Beach station for any information Shipman could give me before I started the chase. Kept in the taxi, rocked into a comfortable position in the back seat. Thought about starting a chat with the driver. Hear the latest about the Shoeless Joe? He asked. I have an interview in Milwaukee. Still says he's innocent. What a racket. Shoeless Joe Jackson was one of baseball's all-time greatest players. But in 1919, he was part of the White Sox team that had been accused of intentionally losing the World Series. Fixing the match for East Coast gamblers like Arnold Rothstein. The scandal's magnitude was so enormous that every American was gripped by the reports in the newspapers, whether they were fans of baseball or not. Though the team had been acquitted in a public trial, baseball insiders still claimed the fix had been real. 8 White Sox players, including Shoeless Joe, were forever banned by the league. Throughout the ordeal, Joe has retained his innocence, and he is suing his former league for back pay that he had received after being banned. Most baseball fans prefer to think of themselves as insiders, and since insiders thought Shoeless Joe was guilty, so did they. Lawsuit starts in a few days, the driver rambled on. Can't believe the gall of this one. Thinks he can ruin a sport, profit from it, and then sue the league? I hope one of his lawyers socks him in the jaw. His rambling continued as we rolled to a stop. I left the taxicab and wasn't sure if the driver had even noticed. Did we pay? Did we just, like, fucking leave? Good on her. Headquarters building dominated the corner of Kearny and Washington and Chinatown. Rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake, I thought it looked even more sour than it had before. Stepped to the taxicab and walked through the station doors, ready to chase any leads on Green, but standing in front of me as I entered, falling her eyes from her sockets was Mrs. Green. She saw me and brought her wailing closer. Alone, she exhaled through her sobbing. You were working for my husband. What happened? Her breathing obscured her next sentence, but I got the general idea. I told her I knew as little about the matter as she did, but I was looking into it, and I was sure the officers were doing their best. She begged me to help them, again drowning most of her sentences in her sobbing. Promised I would try. Took a slow inhale, raised her chest, and walked out of the station. Out of sight, Frank Grant came around the corner and let out a shout. Grant was another investigator for the SFPD. I studied his ruddy face, strewn with broken capillaries that gave it the impression of a map of streams. A cigar often poked through his mouth, hardening his jaw and twisting his face into a scowl. I suppose it was appropriate for a man who enjoyed his bribes in liquid form. Grant had never been a supporter of policewomen, and he was no fan of mine. Get bent, bucko. Light the cigar and said, The widow seems pretty torn up about him. You really helping her out? I said I was. And he gave another snort. Figured she'd go to you after we told her no. Raised a questioning eyebrow. Look, last thing I gotta do is head to the tin spoon, then this goes in the freezer. That meant he was about to close the case cold. You aren't chasing it up? I asked. Looked appalled that I would even ask. We've got more to deal with than some dead gangster. The captain don't care about the crap like this as long as it's not spreading too far. And what about the girl? What'd she expect? He asked. This broad goes and marries an Irishman, phew, probably killed by one of his own. Or some dago. All his bums run together. So he's not only misogynistic, he's racist as fuck. Oh man, I hate this guy. He gave him a frown, to which he responded, look, if the missus wants you on this, that's her gamble. But it ain't gonna lead you nowhere, and don't expect support from the boys. Not even if I find Green's killer. He laughed. If you get a confession, we'll cop him. Not something the DA can thumb his nose at, either. They gotta admit three things. Means, how they killed Green. Opportunity, when they did it. And motivation, why they didn't bother. Like, this reminds me, I had, like, sometimes I'll comment on, like, reposts on Facebook of, you know, like, am I the asshole posts, you know, like, you know, on board pan and stuff. And one like, I had comment, like, there was something about, like, woman not wanting to invite, like, a woman's sister not wanting to come to her wedding or something. I can't remember what this was. And I was talking to, like, some other people about it. And then this person just decided to go all, must have saw that my last name, you know, is Dumphy, you know, it's Irish. I just went off, you know, like, with these stereotypes about, you know, like, how I wouldn't know because, you know, like, all the Irish breeding like rats, you know, and stuff like that. It's like filthy people, and I'm like, bucko? What the fuck? So I reported, and it was actually something that Facebook actually removed. I was surprised, because usually you get back, like, you can report the most horrible things, and they'll send back, you know, like, this doesn't break community standards, or, like, you could request another review. And occasionally you get redirected to submit to the oversight board. But they actually did remove this, but I was like, what the fuck? So we need means, how they killed Green, opportunity, when they did it, and motivation, why they bothered. You do that, then sure, we'll be right behind you. But there ain't nobody here looking into it, I promise. He pulled out a cap and walked out. It's the one we should have smacked him upside the head. Assaulting a police officer. I hurled a glare at Grant's direction. It was still fuming when I turned down the hallway towards Shipman's office. Shipman was frowning at the stacks of papers atop his desk. We stood up and smiled when he saw me. Glad you made it. I vented about Grant. Shipman shook his head. Ain't wrong, you know. Must have scowled a mean look at him because he was quick to follow with, not that the case is dead, PC, but Captain has nobody on it. Even Grant's coming off as soon as he can. We're underwater here with other bunk. So you have nothing for me? Not true. The department still did the regular foxtrot. Tossed me a beige folder. Inside was a large black and white photocopy of Green's face. Photograph of Green's face. Muscles relaxed and eyes closed. He looked almost normal, apart from the flattened hat behind his head and the dirt from the grass behind that. The report behind the photo noted 3 important clues. That Green died at midnight the previous night. I cursed myself that I'd been so close to stopping it. Second, that Green was killed with 2 .45 caliber bullets to the chest. Those slugs weren't from a pea shooter. Green was killed by a mean gun. Finally, that Green was found this morning laying in Washington Square Park, that it was only a block away from the Tin Spoon. I noted each of these facts and gave the folder back to Shipman. All we got, Shipman said, laying the folder back on the desk. Can't pinch the gunman if you can prove the case, but you solve it without much support. Don't have time to help either, he sighed. No point coming back here until you got your man. At least I'm on a case. I said, that's good enough to leave me tickled pink. Shipman laughed. But listen, we need a confession on this one. Captain doesn't want to run around.
The block keeps the piece in place while workers carve.
Okay.
To fix the wooden block,
I just was checking up. There's well, there's 3 really missable achievements, like, coming up. Like, some of them you can go back and get, like, like the cocktail shaker. You can go back and get another drink. But there's 3 with evidence things coming up. At least I'm in case. I said that's good enough to leave me tickled pink. Shipman laughed. But listen, we need a confession on this one. Captain doesn't want to run around. Right. Grant mentioned they'd have to admit to how, why, and when they killed Green, and that's it. Prove that, and we'll pick them up, he said. Never been on a murder before, right? Can get tense, Just know if you accuse someone, but can't prove everything, they turn like a switch. Might like you one minute, but hate you the next. Chatting with you folks is the easiest route to more information, but won't get any better after you accuse someone of murder. So be careful. Who you accuse could make your case harder if you go the wrong way. Alright, I get it, I said, and I internalized it. And remember, Shipman concluded, plenty of lies out there, and you can contradict means, motive, or opportunity with anything in your notes. I thanked him and walked out of his office. Read the rest of this.
But when the ivory trade was banned in the 1990s, carving bones from camels or buffaloes became a legal and cheaper alternative. The Akhtar family says their business peaked during the early 2000s with support from the government. Jalali won a national award in 2012, and a couple years later, the government sent him to Brazil to show off his work.
तो वहाँ से जो है बहुत अच्छा है, यानी यहाँ से बहुत अच्छे पैसे वहाँ पे कि जो चीज़ हम यहाँ 20 रुपए में बेचते थे तो वो चीज़ वहाँ 400 रुपए में खरीद रहे थे लोग शौक से.
But soon after, the Akhtar said with the new administration, funding shrunk, and business hasn't been the same ever since.
फिर उस टाइम में सरकार ने बदली भी धीरे-धीरे वो गिरता चला गया. आज वो दौर हो गया है कि अब
Stood outside the police station and went over the mantra. I had to prove means, motive, and opportunity for anyone I suspected of the murder. Once I found all 3 in a single person, I had them licked. I started to begin the case. Debating where to go to next.
The raw materials became too expensive for such a small market.
I'm gonna go to Southern Coffee just to let Frankie know I'm alright.
They didn't pass on the craft within their families.
धीरे-धीरे तो ये लगता है कि आगे चल कर के 10-20 साल के बाद क्या होने वाला है ये तो पता नहीं है.
I was stuck in a case. I could grab a drink and shoot the breeze with Frankie. He might give me a good tip.
It's part of the government's initiative to change the It pays for the students to attend the classes, and for the Akhtar to teach them.
फोन काटने में तो थोड़ा बहुत गलती हुई तो इसमें सरकार का बहुत योगदान है. अगर सरकार ने जरा भी इंटरेस्ट ना लिया होता तो सब जानकारी खत्म हो गई है.
And while the pandemic has slowed down classes,
Flight to taxi cab, and on my way, I thought about chatting to the driver to pass the time.
time to develop a new device, like this lamp.
Talked about the weather and not much else. Sometimes taxi drivers made poor conversation partners.
They export most of their products to foreign
Yeah.
This is one of their most rare and
Oh, this is new.
pieces.
Yellow newspapers flopped on the counter. The sports section dated June 1st, 1887. It read, Browns continue to dominate play, ending May with a 21-2 record after Herculean games throw the same day by pitcher Conway. So it's a really old newspaper.
Start selling their work through social media.
Anything else here? I talked to Frankie. Frankie was still behind the bar. If I was stuck on a case, laundry committee might help. Down the Friday night, Frankie, including what Shipman had told me this morning. Frankie's eyeball raised in shock throughout the story. He was attentive and asked many questions. Shook his head miserably as I finished the story. This is some case. Think he'll go through with it? I told him I thought I would. He sighed. I don't know, Malone. These Egon's rats are dangerous. Egon's rats. Sure you know what you're doing? I answered with a stern look. Well, all right. Let me know if I can help with anything. Asked about the newspaper. Point at the newspaper on the counter. Trying to catch it with your baseball? Your sheet might be a few decades out of date. He smiled broadly at me. That Conway in the headline is me, Malone. I was shocked. I known Frankie had been a decent minor leaguer, but I hadn't known he'd pitched in the majors. Old friend from Philly found that and sent it along, he said. Hell, that year was the best I'd ever hurled it. Kept the smile, but breathed through his teeth. If only Kenny had been around, I might not have started with that booze. Asked about Kenny. That brought sudden change to his mane. Beside his fist on the table. Oh, I would have kept it going if it wasn't for Kenny. That ass, Frank. He cracked his shoulders and scowled at the wall next to him. I debated talking to him. Just had to know the story. Who was Kenny? I prodded. Frankie turned his flower to me. He didn't talk or blink for a full minute, then his eyes were glazed and he finally made a noise. No, PC, let it go. I dropped it. I know better than to push Frankie too far. I could ask him about his baseball career another time, when he was less tense. He seemed to appreciate that and became noticeably calmer. I'd about like to speak with him about.
This one is over 100 years old. It's owned by NL Ramanarayan consumers. There is no electricity and no industrial machinery here. Workers have already prepped
Yeah, you can go back to baseball career.
filling them with just the right amount of water, about 80 kilos.
Frankie died at midnight, I said. Green died at midnight, I said to Frankie. Right, caught me up on that, I said. Guess you just had to place all your specs with midnight. Nah, that'll be easy, I agreed. What else you got to talk about?
The roses are evenly spread out, and it takes 2 men to carry and pour them into the vase.
Anything else? I asked her about the statue.
As the bubbles begin to steep in the water, a craftsman
Go close slowly.
with a mixture of clay and cotton.
Asked about the newspaper. This newspaper.
They then light firewood inside an earthen oven called the
Vocal Frankie response was nothing memorable.
The heat boils the water and sours until they emit steam. It condenses and
Asked about the
compresses
lamp.
into a hollow bamboo pipe or chakra. That connects to the pot dock, a smaller container filled with
Nope.
sandalwood oil that forms the base of affair.
Asked about the coat.
This is where every last drop of fragrant water will gather over 6 hours.
Nope.
In the meantime, workers constantly check the temperatures of the different vessels, using their hands and years of experience instead of thermometers.
I got 4 more trophies to get.
They monitor the fire to make sure the bases are warm enough to create steam, but not too much, otherwise it can destroy the end. They also have to make sure the pasta stays cool enough to turn the steam back into liquid.
This is a job which requires a lot of patience, it requires a lot of time and effort. The input has to be good to get great outcomes. So every stage of our process has to be given a lot of focus and to be done with a lot of concentration. And any slip off can, have negative results.
And the result is the all-natural
Just gonna check
free
something.
from any alcohol or artificial chemicals.
I don't want to miss those 2 trophies.
Here, they make over 15 different kinds of oil. But one of their most prized is Nifty Ether.
Here's some weight on a green dead, I said to Frankie. It's part of Egon's rats that might be reason enough for someone to bump him off. Malone, be careful. Notorious out east. If they're here now, he trailed off. I nodded. Anyway, what else? What you want to talk to me about?
Smell that one gets. So that's the smell that we can expect from a thermite.
Killed with an automatic pistol, I said to Frankie. Right, you caught me up on that, he replied. Finding a weapon placed in someone's hand, you won't have any easy go of it, though. You're careful. Those mob guys can be dangerous.
But while rose ether is made in a day, others can take weeks or even months to produce. They
Surprised. That's why I came here was like because I had that the traffic accident, auto accident. Green was killed outside the tin spoon. I said to Frankie, right? Caught me up on that. He replied. Now you just discover it was near that speakeasy last night. Not sure you could be getting that close to those mob dealings. I can handle my own, Frankie. I told him. It's good to hear. What else you want to talk about?
The raw materials are costly, and it takes a lot to make just a little amount of perfume. ये इतने महंगे इंग्रेडिएंट बिकते हैं कि जैसे आप चंदन का तेल ओनली 1 लाख रुपए से नीचे नहीं बिकता, ऊपर ही बिकता है। तो हम इसके फूल लगाएंगे 50 रुपए किलो या
Asked Frankie again about the Zinfandel grapes. Only from California, Maloney told me. I'd stake my life on it. Yeah, I think we're done. Ask some questions.
As a matter of fact, Kannauj has got the geographical indication for an asar. So, technically, an asar can only be from Kannauj.
Never mind, I said, and swallowed my seat away from the bar. I think we drank enough.
thousands of years ago. In India, it was popularized by Mughal kings during the 17th century. But these days, young grand-conscious Indians
I'm about to put a grin on my face. The newspaper again.
in the last 20 years, 80% of India's traditional distilleries have closed down, and the people of Kannauj have felt the decline.
Yeah, I'm gonna check on this is green, because I know there's probably going to be quite a bit with if I go back to the tin spoon. I think that's where I have to go next, because she wanted to talk to me, so we'll go here first. Because I figure the tin spoon, especially where his body was found near it, it's going to be stepped in the taxi and rocked a comfortable position in the back seat. I thought about starting a chat with the driver. Yeah, let's talk about baseball. Or asked me if I heard of the radio program, WLS Showboat. I said I hadn't. He launched into a praise about the floating palace of wonder. I want to know about this. You see, there's this captain and his first and second mates, right? They go around sailing all the rivers of the U.S. Of course, they're terrible at running the ship. Doing things like, he broke his sentence with a chuckle, hang the laundry on the paddle wheel. Can you imagine Leonard Belly laugh? Well, anyhow, they also play music from the different places. Twangs from the South, trumpets from Chicago, and they run it weekly. How about that? How about that? I replied and stepped out of the taxi cab at my destination. I left my driver still laughing to himself.
After all, recreating the smell of rain on earth is
Ah, excuse me. I don't want to sit on you, Neptune. Give me a moment. I'm just adjusting myself. But Neptune has a habit of getting like right close to my back, so I didn't want to sit on her. Breeze Apart was a section of old Western Addition mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families to seek rent after the 1906 fire. Yeah, we already know this.
push for modernization. Today, Nasser Abdel Razak is one of the only bedmakers left in Cairo. He visited his shop to cut his 130
I want to ask her about the damn coat, too.
For over 4 decades, Nasser has been crafting what was once a symbol of Ottoman life.
ده اللي هو التربية يعني أنا بحس إن أنا
Came upon the greenhouse and knocked on the door. This time, Mrs. Green opened it quickly.
Every single one just got to me.
Miss Malone, she panted, with noticeable shock in her eyes. I'm just frightened about people knocking at my door, she said by way of explanation. After what happened to my husband, everything feels so cold. Oh, I'm blabbering. Please come inside. She led the way to two chairs, and we sat down. She was more awake than the previous day, but her hair was a bit tousled, and her S's hung in the air, long enough to blare her lack of complete sobriety. Haven't found anything about my husband's killer, she asked. Well,
To get the right shape, he uses these copper molds. More than
no, I don't know about his killer, no. Shook my head and replied that there was nothing definitive just yet. I said I would need to ask her some questions that might spark the investigation. She straightened in her chair and replied with, "Certainly." Yeah, we're not accusing her. I don't think she murdered her husband.
Tried to make new machines, but couldn't find any factories that still manufacture the right parts. The inside was blue silk.
I want to ask her
Then it's time to
about being a singer at the Spoon, because I didn't get to before. You're a jazz singer at Tin Spoon, I asked. She gave a languid nod. I wonder how she started singing, so I asked. That's about her roots. Well, she started. Papa never liked the petting parties or liquor or the young men and roadsters, but he never had made a fuss about it. Not until I started to sing. That's enough to get a girl disowned. I suppose I was a teenage prima donna looking for attention, she sighed. Where were you raised? Where were you raised? A question. She smiled. But there was a hint of cruelty behind it. I'm a stern, Miss Malone, the only child of Abraham and Ellis. My maternal grandmother was Frances Strauss, sister of Levi. Your father is that Abraham Stern? I raised an eyebrow. He now owns a full quarter of the Levi Strauss Company. And you're wondering how I came to this? She looked around the room, imagined she would have cackled, but the laudanum kept her emotions muted. Well, I traded wealth for freedom at a young age, and would do it again. I understood her reasoning. I nodded. Oh, I got a trophy for that. Change subject to the case. Yeah, we're not accusing her. I don't think she would do this. Because I think, like, one, she could have just, like, left him if she knew he was going to be knocked off. I want to ask about this fucking coat. That's the coat that hung on the rack. When did you get this? I asked. Her focused eyes met the gray trench coat. Brought it back home one day. It was too small for his frame, but I thought it looked swell on me. Seems built for a man, I said. Sure. But it's the freedom age, darling. We can wear anything, or even nothing at all. Well, asked about the empty laudanum. Motioned to the balls and ground. Yeah, I made a terrible housemaid, she said. It's hard for a working girl, you understand. In many ways I did, but the clutter was less inebriating, and I told her so. Sometimes the vocal cords need a little lubricating. She smiled. I asked about the plant. Poor plant. Pointed to a wilted flower. It's a struggle to keep any plants alive, I said. Yeah, but I can't say no to the yellow chrysanthemums. They're so warm, brighten the entire room.
It was a defining symbol of the entire Ottoman Empire that rose to power in the 14th century and controlled large swaths of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East.
Ashtray.
In the early 19th century,
I'm gonna ask about the notes. Got nothing I don't know about that. I'm gonna ask about the tickets to St. Louis now. Seems your husband was from St. Louis, I put to her. She squirmed, but said nothing. So I pressed her. Mrs. Green, I'm investigating his death. You're right, he sighed. He had told me he was from the East. Though he lied to everyone else, he claimed he had to flee from his past. I never asked the details, that's all I know. And you're the first person I've told. He also had 2 train tickets to get there, I continued. He wanted to return. All those tickets had no date printed on them. She paused, looking at me from underneath long lashes. She continued. He's thinking of going back there. I guess whatever trouble he had was blowing over. But I refused. I told him I wanted to stay in San Francisco. Whatever Connor and me quarreled, a sharp, wavering inhale cut off her sentence. Well, he kept her around to brandish, to show me that he loved me, and that he stayed here only for me. Not that we spoke about something else. Fucking ass.
Nasser mostly sells to Islamic studies professors, religious leaders, and movie producers.
Okay, I can't ask about stuff that's crossed out.
Nasser and his son running the shop. They can make up to 100 fezes in a day, but usually orders are well under that. But he remembers hearing stories about a time when business was booming.
Asked maybe she saw something. end up at Southern Coffee yesterday?" I asked her. "I told you, I followed Connor to your apartments. I became furious when he was calling on another woman." "And why were you shattering husband to begin with?" I pressed. "Oh, that," she stuttered slowly. "Well, I heard rumors that Connor might have been unfaithful. I discovered it was baseless, but, well, a wife never truly knows. That's why I followed you all the way to Southern Coffee. I had to know the truth, Miss Malone." I was hoping maybe she followed him and knew something when he got shot.
And customers can rest assured that his son plans to carry on his legacy.
Tell her, but well, that, but yet nothing useful out of her. Yeah, I'll tell her about what happened. "Where were you last night?" I asked. Her expression was surprised, but I told her that I just need to place everyone in their locations on the screen to get a full picture of the evening. "Of course," she said. "Let's see. I was singing with the band. The show ended at about 10 o'clock. Then I went to the billiard hall. Oh, it haunts me that Connor was so close when he was killed." She winced. "But none of us heard anything, with how loud we were and how sealed that building is." "How late were you at the pool room?" I asked. "Until early in the morning, say 2 or 3. Yeah, now it's getting like Ace Attorney here.
Workers like Isabel Mullen wash them in small bunches in soapy water.
"What are you doing last night?" I asked. I said I was in the pool room from around 10 o'clock to early morning.
Usually he works in the final stages of production, but today he's on wash
That's
duty.
the gun, I guess, then.
He and his coworkers scrub by the handful for several seconds. It can take workers up to an hour to get through a batch this size.
I'd have heard with that.
Local duck meat farmers sell these cutters in bulk.
Okay.
Next, they rinse the bunches in water and set them aside to drip off.
Okay. Try to talk about Green's past was a lie.
Israel fills his buckets with fresh water for a second drink.
Brought up St. Louis again, but her talk held no new information.
And diamonds
Well, I guess that's that. I was hoping to get like a rise out of her about how, you know.
This gives the feathers a very subtle tint that keeps them from yellowing. Working swiftly in tandem, they rinse.
I'll tell her about the letter too. Because she might, I don't even know if she knows that he was being threatened. Or might have been threatened.
Then they spread them out to dry in the sun for 2 to 4 hours.
"Husband received a threatening letter," I told her. "That's why he came to me." She sobbed. "I know. The police told me the details this morning that Connor had gotten a letter. I had begun bootlegging again, and that he thought a man named Redstone Stable was after him for it. Seemed they had told her everything." Turned the conversation to a different angle. Okay, I'll tell her that the letter was fake, I guess. Let her know that, you know, it wasn't actually a threatening letter. Small black hand on it. That hand, I explained. It's a symbol of the notorious Black Hand gang. Mrs. Green's eyes went wide. "Yes," but I continued, "it was a fake. The Black Hand doesn't run this far west." "So who wrote it then?" she asked. I told her that I thought her husband had written the letter, and that I thought his bootlegging scheme was a bust. He also had those tickets to St. Louis. I think his plan was to fake his death and use me as cover while running back home. She sighed. "I don't know about his dealings, Malone."
They don't even require a guide to churn through hundreds of identically trimmed feathers a day.
Evidence.
Even though the Neopes are thought to use only Indian feathers,
I turned and turned back to the room.
pork bases from China.
There's apparently something I'm supposed to look at. Supposed to find her hat.
Was the only machine used at the factory.
Oh, there's no hat on the rack. Okay.
But it isn't
There's a
fully
man's hat
automated.
hanging on the rack
Someone
in
still
front of
has
the
to
door.
put it into place with a steady hand and a good eye. Precision like this is also key
Round table are mostly empty.
Into the vase.
Well, at least she cleaned up the ones on the floor.
A worker aligns each feather so it overlaps with the next, occasionally checking that they're all even. And then another binds them together with thread. This forms what's called the skirt of a shuttlecock.
ये नानल से इससे होता है, नानल से इससे बाइंडिंग किया जाता है।
Rack in front of the door. Asked what note. Brought the hat rack. What does this? Who does this belong to? What do you mean? She asked. I think that's my husband's. Green was wearing his hat. Police photo. Fanny winced at my reference to the photograph of her husband. I may have had more than one, she said.
To the base and threads with a paintbrush. Then it's time for the finishing touches, like a label that indicates the speed of the shuttlecock, and of course the Yodo brand. One important aspect
It's a little
of
bit
this job
right.
is to weigh each one before packaging.
ऐसे होता है ये अगर वो थोड़ा वेट ज़्यादा
Anybody with a reason whatsoever to kill your husband? I asked her. She mentioned her husband had been a bootlegger, then turned the waterworks on for a minute. I got her to calm down again and asked, were there any dramatic quarrels? She put down a question. Every marriage has its quarrels, Miss Malone, she snapped. But I loved him dearly.
But from start to finish, a single shuttlecock
I decided to tackle something else.
আমার হাত থেকে ভালো ভালো মানে মিশিয়ে ফিনিশিং হাতের মধ্যে ফিনিশিং মতন হবে না বাইরের মানের মতো ফিনিশিংয়ের মতো ফিনিশ হবে না এটা দেখতে ভালো লাগে সুন্দর যেন একটা লোক মিশে গেলে খুব পছন্দ হয় মাথায় সুন্দর
Must have put the wine, I guess.
এত ভালো হবে না
However, this kind of approach means small things like this can't make as much product.
Yeah, I don't think Fanny Green did this. I think she was stupid, and like she knew her husband was a crook, but she didn't really know
Over the past few years.
what was going on.
তাহলে আমাদের সব লোক চলে যাবে বাস চলে যাবে আমাদের এই জীবনটা আমাদের ছাড়তে বেরিয়েছে যে আমার 15 জন লেবার তখন দুটো লেবার রাখবি বেশি এসে গেলে তাহলে এই কামগুলো করতে হবে এই কাজগুলো করতে হবে
The rise in synthetic shuttlecocks is another threat. Plastic and nylon alternatives have become more popular, but they're often cheaper and last longer.
प्लास्टिक सर्जन तो मुद्दा आदमी जो है वो प्लास्टिक वो माने बॉडी फूड डालने के लिए खेलता है इसमें तो मजा नहीं है प्लास्टिक सर्जन मजा नहीं है
Okay, is there anything else I need to ask her? What I'm looking at is like what examinable objects are in a room so I don't miss something and then play for a fucking hour and a half looking for what the fuck I missed.
Pandemic has delayed widespread development and approval of them. And opinions among professional players are still mixed on how it could impact the sport. But for the workers who rely on feathered shuttlecocks, there's no substitute for the real thing.
এই ইন্ডিয়ান আলাদা আমরা চলবে এই জায়গায় সেটা আমরা আজীবন চলছে
Asked her the password of the tin spoon. Set the pull in Frankie's bottle. Not supposed to be, she asked. That's the password to the tin spoon. Oh, precious, she said. My password to that joint is my voice. Okay, what do we have? Asked her about the cash, I guess. I got next to nothing to do with that. Anything else in the evidence?
Toyota trained service experts recommend the right tires for the season and your driving habits because they care about getting things right for you. Toyota Parts and Service. Let us care about the details.
I'll ask about Red Stable. Husband suspected Redstone's stable of interfering with his business. She repeated that police had already told her the details. From the conversation, different angle. It would be. I nodded, thanked her for answers, and turned back to the room.
Decades of war and conflict.
Well, I'm leaving.
At one point, they were used
I was just warped enough to prevent the front door from completely closing.
but now only a handful are left.
Okay, let's go do this. Green had been killed outside the tin spoon. I could go there and look for clues of his murder. Dress and step to the back door. I decided debated talking with the driver. Again, idle chatter, but the driver kept stifling laughter when I asked him why he apologized. I said, "Just got over Felix the cat showing. They're running All of them back to back at the opium, at the Orpheum. Best time I've spent. Talked about the Felix cat collection, including his favorite, Felix in Hollywood. Can you believe they got Charlie Chaplin and Douglas Fairbanks in a cartoon? We came to my destination and he is still laughing. Stepped out of the taxi cab with a smile on my face. My experience with Felix the Cat is like I was that weird movie with the princess and the magic bag and the bubble and the weird 80s music and like the professor, stuff like that. Like one movie. I don't know like from the show for the movie or any of that or the context. I just had it on my adopted sister used to record things because she had cable and stuff in Halifax, and I would send stuff VHSs down for me to watch stuff like, you know, Dumbo's Circus and like the Winnie the Pooh show, and, like oh, what was it? Maybe it was Dumbo's I'm thinking of. But it was just like, you know, like stuff that'd be like on the Disney Channel in like the late 80s, early 90s. I'd together the old warehouse truly turned speaky, and its wood sign still barely holding on to the frame of the building. Knuckles on the same metal door. Instead of the usual dark eyes, the door swung open to reveal Frank Grant. He let out a PC, good seeing ya, with more whiskey in his breath than a fire breather. He stumbled down a few steps, and I caught his limp body. All loose ends tied up, he said, winking at me as he tried to stand tall. Through the doorman in the back of the wagon, he continued. Says nobody came in or out of the upstairs billiards hall last night. Hiccup interrupted Grant's thoughts. You know, I believe him. But the bowls need someone to work on, and putting welts on this goo will make the afternoon go faster. Tried again to stand upright. Failing at that, he stumbled. His police car got behind the wheel and let sirens loose and drove the machine around the corner. That's why you don't catch him alone. That's why you just let him fucking fall down the stairs. I'm gonna put the heater on. I continued up the stairs to find a similar scene at the day before, only Tiny Paul had been replaced by a young woman, idly playing with a deck of cards scattered across the billiards table. The balls were gone from the billiards table, and their place were some betting chips, and cards strewn across the felt. I counted 5 aces, 2 aces of heart. A couple of tall chairs were placed around the billiards table. Hot cues, dangling lamps. Oh, can't look at the wine now. Guess we just got the woman now. I see the tears welling up in the girl's eyes. Talk. Approached the young woman and looked her up and down. I studied her face. She was in the early 20s and was naturally pretty, with deep eyes, simmering black hair, and big rouged lips. The holding back tears somewhat twisted her face. I cleared my throat and turned around. And she turned around. Oh, she said, I didn't hear anybody after that officer left. What did Grant want? I asked her. Him. She snorted. Well, he started by asking about Connor Green and the man who died here last night. Then what did he ask about? What do you think? He kept wanting me to feed him drinks, and the more I put in him, the more fresh he got with me. She had a sigh. It's not your fault. I said, of course it isn't, she exclaimed. All men are brutes, but I can't exactly slip away from a copper. Anyway, I'm just frantic because of this booze. I'm sure it'll wear off. She turned her gaze back to the cards at the table. She was putting up a strong mask, but I could tell something about Grant's interaction had rattled her. The truth is, most women wear a mask in public. Almost every one of us has a story about being mistreated or worse. Me too. I'm sorry, she interrupted my thoughts. I'm Alice Smith. I work nights as a backing singer here. I realized she was related to the Green case, at least partially. I had to pump her for information. I'm gonna ask about Mrs. Green. Asked Mrs. Green's wife been under the pseudonym Little Fanny. Ella Smith nodded in information. Apparently, one of the trophies to miss is the newspaper from your apartment. Asked about the article on Lynn's death, which started her on a tirade about communism. A who only make folks miserable. Even those parlor pinks admit that Mr. Rayner should never have been famous and endured in a red system. I'm sorry, I'm saying to you now, she continued, there's no good that will come of all that. You can't try for the best, everyone settles into average, and then average becomes below average, and then it gets worse. Okay. I'm gonna stay on her good side. Their capitalism might have its problems, but communist regime is worse in every way. She nodded empathically. And that's their economics. Don't get me started on freedom. Emancipation won't be there anytime soon. If anything, they're going the wrong way. Continue to chat like that for a while, purring about America's political virtues. I imagine that somewhere far away, a couple of Bolsheviks were having a similar talk about their own system. So we stopped talking politic, and I moved the conversation to a different direction. Okay, that's the trophy. Yeah, if you just drop it, you don't get the trophy. Thing is, like, yeah, socialism, there's a big difference in socialism than there is communist regime, which is, dictatorship type thing. Okay, statements. I asked if she knows about the hat. I was surprised my mom didn't call me. I kind of was hesitant to start playing because I figured she'd call. I'm sorry, she said. I don't know anything about that. I nodded, asked her about something else. Frank was killed around midnight, I told her. Do you remember anything from then? She turned, read it, and midnight was time I sang all by myself to the crowd up here. How do you know it was midnight? I asked. Well, last New Year's Eve, exactly midnight, me and little Fanny, our lead, did a well-do for the boys. They wanted to hear it again, but she wasn't around to sing it, so I did it alone. Fanny wasn't around? I asked. The doorman said nobody from the billiards room left the joint. Alice shrugged. Maybe she was in the toilets. I didn't go looking for her. Look, I never get to lead sing. They don't like us Chinese girls doing that, so I took my chance. How could I turn it down? She asked. Well, anyway, after that song is when I really downed some gin. I don't much like it, but they said it was good for me, and I was riding high with everyone watching. I don't remember much after that. I thanked her for the tip. So you claim you were in here at midnight? I asked. That's right, she said. I asked her about something else. Okay, has this been added to my statements? I asked her about the tears now. Asked her about being Chinese too, I guess. Asked her again, why have you been crying? Please, she pleaded. It's not. Let's not talk about that further. I was hoping you'd find out more. like maybe she's running around with green.
But some basic materials are hard to find.
Parents are Chinese.
Sometimes they even have to make
On
their
the
own
side,
shoes.
I don't even know my parents, and I can't speak Chinese. I was raised in the Occidental Board Mission House, the one orphanage that takes Chinese kids, but nobody adopted an Oriental, she said, at last word with obvious disgust. Over half the kids my age die as infants. Were unwanted, I was. She paused and looked at her feet. Waited for her to continue, but she didn't say anything else.
At this point, Indian law requires the company to send a partially completed weapon to a government lab for safety testing. This is standard practice for almost every gun maker in the world, large or small. But for the Saru gun factory,
So we know Malone, or Mrs. Green is lying. Because she was not
send a gun to the lab when
up in the billiards room at midnight. Keep reaching for my laptop to use the trackpad, and I'm using the mouse because it doesn't like, this Case of Distrust doesn't like the trackpad. Asked her again her whereabouts the previous night. As I told you, she said, I was up here the entire night singing to the boys.
are known for. Walnut wood from this region is known for being high quality, durable, and good for carving. Some customers
Asked her again about the whereabouts of the previous
others
nights.
go for a plain finish.
Okay, that's not what we want to know. We just wanted to ask, like, you know, about.
These guns can cost anywhere from $270 to $470, depending on the level of customization.
Do you know anybody that had a gun that could kill Green? I asked. Looked at me puzzled, explained myself. Miss, I'm just a private investigator looking into matters. I need to follow up with everyone. She looked surprised when I said private detective, but she didn't comment on it further. She chuckled at my question. I don't know if you know this, but, well, the place is a type of gangster hideout. No one in the band has shooters, of course, but just about everybody else in the building is carrying something. That was no help narrowing my list of suspects, but I nodded in understanding. You'll carry your gun yourself? I asked. Shook her head. No, ma'am. No shooters in the band. She seemed adamant on that point. Nodded and asked her about something else. Well, anybody with reason to kill Connor Green, I put to her. No, I'm not sure. I heard Connor come around here on the regular a few years back. That's how he and Fanny met. But that was before my time. I never saw him much.
Both India and Pakistan have claimed territory in Kashmir.
It's so easy to hit contradict.
The disputed border is a ceasefire line called the Line of Control that is guarded by each country's armed forces.
Oh,
Over
excuse me.
90% of the younger generation
About the gun that killed Green, I started. As I told you, she said, all our customers typically have shooters, but nobody in the band carries any heat.
violent clashes between Indian and Pakistani military forces started in the 40s and continue to this day. But since the 1990s, bloodshed has increased in
Let's forget about the
the
werewolves.
civilian
No,
to take up arms
this is not getting anywhere.
As a result, the Indian government banned gun production and stopped issuing licenses in the region. That ban was eventually repealed, and the Zarus did all they could to
Asked her
keep
about
up
the
business
wine.
into the 21st century.
I showed her something about notes.
Sales have recovered.
Yeah, I think we're done talking to her.
In August 2019, India revoked Kashmir autonomy. The military enforced a security lockdown and communications blackout, hurting local businesses and bringing life to
Oh, my gums are sore anyway because I had, I've eaten, I had curry, I made curry, and I didn't get to cook the meat as long as I would have liked to make it extra soft. Like, it was soft, but
paperwork on national security grounds.
I have gum issues where the gums are a little bit too long, so stuff gets stuck up under them, and it's annoying.
The family is trying to work with local authorities to get the whole industry back on its feet. Baran suggests getting a local police force to become a customer.
Okay. Oh yeah, no one mentioned Paul wasn't here.
Right now, things can't get much worse for the business.
There was Tiny Paul, I asked. I need to see him. Paul's like as tired as I am. After the band finished downstairs, came up to play poker. Paul and the boys Oh. Someone's playing Fallout 4. One of my Steam friends. Paul likely has tired as I am. Paul and the boys were at it the entire night, so I assume he's at home. I asked if she knew where Paul's home was, but she shook her head. No, Paul and I aren't close. Don't. Okay, I should ask her about the cards, because there's, you know, there's too many aces. Cards you're fiddling with, I said. They're the same ones that the boys were playing with last night, she said they were. Yeah, can I ask her about the password? Put the password's in spoon, but she seems to know nothing about it. I suppose employees could enter without any code.
Part of a month-long process to make just one scarf. Indigenous Mayan weavers have been using these techniques for over 2,000 years, and in Guatemala, groups of women have banded together to preserve this part of their heritage. After
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's nothing else to ask him.
threatened their culture.
Asked her, I should say.
These groups are still standing.
That's about the lamps.
Normally these weavers work in their own homes.
Tor said, I don't know anything about that.
Together to show us
Leave her alone.
of their process.
Turn back to the room.
Domina Isabel Concha Upan has been doing this since she was a little girl. It all starts with a
Bye, Ella.
that grows right here in Taiwan. Dominga's success is
Thought about heading back downstairs out to the street. Kinda sucks. I don't want to save because it's so fucking hard to get this back up, but I think I'm going to do that right now. And then start up again. Because there's no way to save without exiting.
to pull the cotton into a thread.
No, we're gonna get this bullshit, are we? And probably get a Windows, sound driver error.